about, what is that, about 8 feet, their wingspans. So they can be very, very big birds, and up to close to 5.5 kilograms. So around 12, 14 pounds in weight. Just have a look at, you can see how delicately he's actually consuming this meal, just plucking out the bits of meat and ignoring some of the larger bones. And that's partly an adaptation to the fact that, like all birds, raptors don't have teeth. And what they do to compensate is they will actually eat little rocks and pebbles, and that will help to grind up the food in the stomach. They've got incredibly powerful gastric muscles that help to churn up the food in place of teeth. So often with the larger eagles, you'll see them quite delicately eating around the carcasses that their kills. But then obviously you get things like owls that will swallow it whole and then cough up the bones in pellets. And it actually looks as though it was another bird. So possibly something like a guinea fowl. I'm still trying to see. But it could well be anything ranging from a guinea fowl or a francolin to some kind of reptile. These birds are very adaptable and very, very proficient hunters. Actually hear it crunching as it breaks the bones apart. So as I mentioned earlier, it is common for them to hunt guinea fowl, and there are lots of raptor species that do specialize in catching birds like guinea fowl and francolin, the African hawk eagles being a prime example. And they are slightly smaller than the martial eagle, so a bit more maneuverable. But these larger eagles, the Varro's eagle, the martial that we see here, and the crowned eagle, they actually use their incredible mass to approach at great speed and then land on top of the bird that they are hunting. And they've got very, very powerful talons that crush them, and it's a very, very quick, efficient way of killing and hunting. And it's always interesting when you hear guinea fowl alarm calling and you realize that it's because or due to a raptor. And often they're a little bit confused as to what to do, because if it's a predator like a leopard or one of the smaller cats like a caracal or a serval hunting a guinea fowl, they immediately fly up into trees and try and hide there. But when a bird is a threat, when a large raptor like this eagle is the one hunting them, they actually desperately try and run for cover under fallen trees and disappear as best they can into the grass. And I'm sure if you listen to the nuances of their alarm calls, they must be able to communicate the different predators to each other. And it must have been quite a large kill. I'd like to go back and see, once he's left, what's left at the base of the tree. I'm not sure if this is close to where the kill happened or where he started feeding. But typically big birds of prey, if they do catch bird species, they will break off as many of the feathers as they can before they start to eat them. So you'll often find at the place of a kill, lots and lots of scattered feathers everywhere. The martial eagle is definitely one of my favorite species of eagle to see, just because they are so incredibly impressive in terms of size. My actual favorite eagle in the world is a Verreaux's eagle. I've always known it as a black eagle, but the name has recently changed. And it's a very similar sized eagle, but totally black with a white V across its back. Unfortunately, not something that we see all that often in these kinds of habitats. They tend to specialize more in the Rocky Mountains, where they target things like rock hyraxes or dussies, as they're known here. But there is a nesting pair in the botanical gardens in Johannesburg that has been monitored for years and years and years. And my grandfather actually discovered that nest many years ago. And my mom often recounts stories to me of her childhood spent where they would go and hike in the trails and go and watch the black eagles nesting. And very soon we're going to start to see the return of some of the smaller eagle species. The steppe eagle and the Wahlberg's eagle will be the most notable amongst those. They'll be on their way back soon. And I think the Wahlbergs and the steppe eagles are both eagles that fly all the way down from Europe and from Russia. So they travel the most incredible distances year after year to get to the best and most nutritious habitats. And migration in birds is the most phenomenal process. Their systems of navigations, their perception of magnetic fields, it's all absolutely mind-blowing when you think of how they manage to traverse those areas and still wind up where they want to be. Sorry guys, I'm just listening to the Game Drive channel briefly. Okay. So I'd like to just show you a picture of the eagle that you're looking at, and then as well as the black eagle or the Verreaux's eagle that I was talking about a little bit earlier, because they are one of my favorite eagle species. So the one that we're looking at the moment is the martial eagle. So this one here, and he has been very, very obliging. He's still eating away. You can see that is the adult plumage. Now, the juveniles can be really, really confusing because they are slightly smaller. That crest on the top of their heads isn't as pronounced, and then they've got this very unusual sort of black and white coloration. And that's often the case with juvenile eagles. They have very, very different plumage colors to the adults, and they can be quite confusing in almost all of the species. And it takes them about 7 or 8 years before they reach their adult plumage. So a good period of time. So they are out and about and independent and flying around. So they can cause some confusion, but always nice to know what you are looking for. And our friend is, I think our friend is still there. So we'll just see if he's still feeding. And quite happily, he's been here for a good, I'd say 20 minutes, because Scott actually found him and called me into the sighting. So this was obviously quite a big meal for him, or her. And as with all big raptors, the females, there's not much dimorphism between the males and the females of the martial eagle, but as with all big raptors, the females are much larger, noticeably larger than the males. And we discussed this probably about 2 weeks ago, talking about the different theories behind why the females are bigger in raptors. And one of the theories that was put forward is one that is very interesting to me. I'm not sure whether it provides a complete explanation, but this theory sort of suggests that the maternal instinct is very, very strong in most animals, and the mated pair of eagles will both take care of their family. But often in species, especially that specialize in hunting and hunting other bird species, like the situation that we've got here, the theory sort of suggests that the father of the birds, whose bond isn't as strong as the maternal bond, might get the movement of the chicks, of his own chicks, might trigger the wrong instinct within him and possibly cause him to do them harm just because it's triggered that hunting instinct within him. Whereas the mother has got that very, very, very strong maternal link to her offspring. So there's less chance of her doing that. So the suggestion is that the bigger females are better able to defend their own chicks from their mates. An interesting theory. I'm not necessarily saying that I agree with it, but one that I'm sure you have opinions on. And if you do have any questions or any opinions, and you are joining us for the first time, this is a live safari and it is interactive. So if you want to know a little bit more about what you're seeing, or even on a different topic, you can send through your questions or comments to #SafariLive on Twitter or to questions@wildearth.tv. I'm hoping that when this eagle does finish its meal, it might turn around and just give us a better frontal view, or at least in profile. And often just before big raptors fly off, they tend to survey the area and just double check which direction they're going to head off in. Piece of bone snapped off. It actually looks as though it's going to swallow that bone whole. So Michael's shared with me some very, very interesting information about the bald eagle and the fact that their talons are so powerful. There's something along them, they can have a crushing power of somewhere in the region of 1,000 psi, so pressure per square inch, and incredibly powerful birds capable of breaking a human arm, and beaks that are capable of tearing at flesh. And that is the most amazing bird species. It's not my area of expertise, obviously. I've never been to America and I've never seen one, but it is definitely on my wish list. I would love to see one. And I know that they are slightly bigger than this martial eagle that we're looking at, although I think that the strength of those talons and the beaks and so on would probably be in a similar region. So the martials are just slightly small, probably not quite as powerful, but definitely close. And I'm sure I saw some incredible shots of a bald eagle going for a large, I can't remember which species of deer it was, but actually going to try and kill a deer. So they are phenomenal birds. So this is definitely a sighting that Gerda is enjoying as much as I am. And Gerda tells me that this is a new bird to add to her Wild Earth Safari bird list. So for those of you who might be joining us for the first time, a lot of our regular viewers are ticking off the various bird species that we see on the drives. And there's such an incredible variety of bird life in the Sabi Sands. It's a great way of just building up some knowledge. And that's the fantastic thing about these live safaris, is that you can watch very regularly and you can start to build up some incredible local knowledge. So Gerda, congratulations on your new bird to add to your list. I'm very glad that we got to see it. And we'll be aiming for all kinds of different birds, especially in the summer months, as the migratory species come back. Now, I'm not sure, but I have seen, twice in the last week, I've seen martial eagles flying just over the camp that we're staying at. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is potentially one of them or part of a mated pair that's moving around in the area, because we are very, very close to our campsite, our camp. And these marshals will be territorial, so they will have set areas that they will move about in. Lions, so possibly the Birmingham boys, you never know, but they were moving south in our direction, so Scott's just been checking up on Buffels Hook Cutline. They haven't crossed south yet, as far as we can tell, but definitely exciting news for us. It could mean that the Birmingham boys are moving back towards Djuma. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye on this area over the next day or two. I would very much like to reposition, just so that we could possibly see a different angle of this bird. Unfortunately, I think that if I start to shift off-road, the noise might actually scare it off, and I really, really don't want to do that, and I don't want to disturb it from its kill. So we're just going to have to hope that it decides to turn around at some point. Definitely can't push any further into this block, otherwise I'm going to be making too much noise. But at least a slightly different angle. Now we can see it from the side. And already it's starting to heat up again today. We started off chilly and misty, and it looks as though we're in for another very, very warm day. Yesterday was 33, so the hottest it's been while I've been here. So guys, we can see that very, very full crop there just being used as an extra storage device. So the bird has packed as much as it can into its stomach, and it's storing a little bit excess in that big bulge underneath its neck that you can see there. However, as amazing as this sighting is with this Marshall eagle and his kill, I believe that James has some very, very exciting news. I think he's got lucky in Arethusa and found you guys a leopard. So I won't be keeping you any longer, and I'll be back with you after your time with James. Enjoy.
Well, everybody, who would have thought? But here we are at Arethusa, and that is the inimitable Shadow. We came in here. I had vague reports of a leopard, and we drove around. I got out of the car, I walked about here, checked way beyond here on foot, and came back. She must have been watching me the whole way. I parked Andrew basically on top of her and left him here. He, of course, obviously decided to take some time off and failed to spot her in the same way that I did. And then we came back, and bang, there she was, staring at us, almost as if to say, "What are you looking for? You, my girl, you is what we're looking for." And there she is. Magnificent. I don't think I've seen her more than 3 times. I don't know where Sindile is. And I think if you look at her belly, and if you can get in on her belly, she's definitely had a kill somewhere around here over the last day or 2. And I know that Sindile was around the area at the same time. So whether he is lurking in a bush somewhere, which would be rather wonderful to see them together. I haven't seen them together for some time. It would be very nice to see them both together. Beautifully peaceful morning now, as you can see her lying down in complete repose. You hear a grey go-away bird alarm calling at her half-heartedly. I suspect, however, that she's left Sindile quite a long way north of here. You know, yesterday they were found on Simbambili. And we were looking at the elephants yesterday morning. She was in Simbambili, attracting enormous attention. And so I suspect she's probably left him somewhere up there. And she is here now. For those of you who perhaps are new to us, Sindile is her youngster, so named by the Twitterverse. I've yet to be able to find a Shangaan who can tell me what Sindile means, so perhaps it's a Zulu word. In Zulu it would mean heavy, but that's not what it means in Shangaan. He is now almost a year old, so he'll be starting to spend more and more time away from her, and she'll be able to spend sort of some downtime on her own as the months go forward and he becomes more and more independent. You just get in on her ears there if you don't mind, Andrew.
Affirmative.
Her ears, you can see, are quite tattered. They've been just showing a little bit of signs of age. She's, if I'm not mistaken, an 8 or 9-year-old leopard. And her mother, Karula, who is the kind of queen of Djuma, one of our favorites off to the east, is 2.5, 3 years older than she is. And can certainly see that level of age on them. She's in prime condition. This is a leopard in prime condition, and in prime sort of, she's got beautiful territory, nice youngster, so she's really living it up at the moment. What I usually say to people is that leopards don't sleep like lions do. They normally look up every so often to see that there's no threat coming by, but she seems to be defying that little assumption, sleeping entirely soundly. What we'll try and do is get into a slightly better position. We might even, these leopards are so confiding, we can probably even get a little bit closer. Not that with that camera we need to. I will try and Andrew, I'm going to try and snip in there, if that's all right with you. Slowly as possible. See how she doesn't even lift her head up. Now, her son is a little bit different in some respects. He will generally lift his head slightly if you get this close to him. Now we're about 10 meters from her. And of course, were I to get out of the car, it would be an entirely different situation. Sorry about that, Andrew. I had to take my foot off the brake. She is just beautifully colored. Sure why she's lying in the shade like this. It's still quite a chilly morning. If I were her, I'd be lying in the sun, luxuriating in the warm rays. See her ears flickering away to try and get the fly. There, she lifted her face. Beautiful. Ah, that's magnificent. The leopard has captured the imagination of this entire ecotourism industry, especially in southern Africa. This animal, people travel thousands and thousands of kilometers and spend thousands and thousands of dollars coming to see. Very sure that the leopard is not nearly as aware as it should be of how much it's done for wilderness conservation in Africa. All right, while this leopard is fast asleep on the floor, we're going to nip across quickly to Jamie. She's still got that magnificent martial eagle and eating its guinea fowl, I believe. Poor old Michael Johnson, the guinea fowl. And she's repositioned, and so we'll nip across to her quickly, and I will come back to Shadow just now.
So So guys, welcome back, and we won't take you away from Shadow for too long. Isn't that fantastic news? I'm really wonderful that you guys got to see her towards the end of the sunrise safari. But we just wanted to show you this gorgeous eagle from a slightly different angle with some nice light, just so that you can get a proper impression of its size and how impressive it is. And it did actually briefly fly off, which is why we were able to get this nice angle. Picked up the kill and just transferred to a different tree. And there's not much left, but still some meat there. And it does look like a very, very full bird. There you go. Just getting a bit of that bone. And so we've gone from very full hyenas this morning to one very, very full martial eagle. So the animals of Djuma are quite content today. He does seem to be swallowing bones as well, which isn't uncommon. They do tend to do that, although they can be quite neat and fastidious about the way that they eat. They do occasionally eat the smaller pieces of bone. At the moment, you can see how dexterous they can be. He's trying to get a good grip on that bone so that he can pick around at the meat, but at the same time without losing his footing or dropping the rest of the kill off the tree. So some tricky maneuvering going on there. So guys, we just wanted to show you this beautiful eagle from a different angle briefly. I don't want to take you away from Shadow for too long, so we will send you back across to James, and I will continue my search for the other animals in Djuma. See you in a few minutes.
Welcome back to Little Shadow, everybody. She's still lurking quietly in the shade here, and her dappled pelage is dappled, of course, by the sunlight shining through a guarri bush in whose shade she is lying. You can see a close-up there of her beautiful face. You can see some of the scars of life in the wild here. Some of those will be from thorns, some of them possibly from fights, especially on her nose there, but she's in pretty good nick. She really does have the look about her, as does her son, and it's probably got to do with the season, you know, being a bit chilly, winter. She does have the look that you would quite happily go up to her and snuggle down next to her, perhaps put your head on her belly and snuggle into that fur. I don't think it would turn out quite like that, though. Were you to get close enough, I'm not sure you'd be doing too much further snuggling with anything. Leopards, they say, are, you know, this is from people who try to raise them from babies of orphaned leopards and that sort of thing. They say that a leopard never becomes tame, it never becomes kind of domesticatable. They always retain a tremendous wildness about them, and I think that's just such a lovely characteristic of theirs. And you can see it in their faces when they walk past you. Curious, there's something in those eyes that says, I will always be part of this wilderness. More so than lions for me. High action there. Lots of flies all over her. When we drove in here, I eventually spotted her, and I said, there she is, Andrew. And he searched around the place before he could see her, and it was just because she's actually amazingly well hidden. It probably doesn't look like that on the camera, but from where we were sitting, it was amazing how the dappled light really did blend with her coat. You can see the white on the fur. The white underside, of course, is not camouflaged in the slightest. And so for her to expose it like that is, it's a little bit risky, but I suppose there's not much around that is going to try and have a go at her today. She's moved quite a distance in the last few days. I know when we were, I think it was 3 nights ago, we were watching lion mating, just not far from here. We're quite close to Arethusa Lodge. She was found here on a duiker kill with, was she with Cindy there? So I think she was with Cindy there. And then she hoofed it off. The next day you saw her with Jamie on Impala Plains, which is on Djuma, and there were the two of them together, and they went off north into Simbambili, where they fed on something else for the rest of the day, and she's come all the way back down here. So that's a round trip of, let's say, a minimum of 10 kilometers. So she's been on a mission, probably quite a lot of territory marking last night, I suspect, and that's how she's ended up here. And there you have that constant awareness that the lions don't have. I mean, I was looking at a clip yesterday of some lions that Brian and I were filming a while back, just totally immobile. Whereas these leopards will always be slightly awake. Andrew, can you get in on her nose there?
Yes, I'm there already.
Well done, Andrew.
Thank you.
You see how we work together. That pink nose is unlike a lion's nose. Lions' noses go black as they get older. They're all born with pink noses. And hers will probably stay pink. Some of them are black, some of them are pink. Just seems to me slightly like she may have picked up on the scent of something. The wind has just started to blow, and so it's possible that she's picked up on something in the wind. And there you can see in her right ear the notches of experience hunting through the thorn bush. Also a lovely shot of her feet there. You can see that's exactly what a leopard track looks like, unsurprisingly. And very soft, very soft. So to track a leopard when it's not on the road is something a very few people have the skill to do. And while there are lots of people in and around this area that call themselves trackers, I am certainly not one of them, there are very few who can follow a track like that through the bush. And there's one particular fellow, a chap called Renayas, what's his second name? Renayas Ntunjwana Mhlongo. And Renius lives just up the road in a village called Dixie, and he is an unparalleled tracker. And watching him walk through the bush on the trail of something like Shadow, I mean, he's tracked countless leopards in his life, and watching him is like watching a magician. What he sees, you and I, I'm afraid, in a lifetime wouldn't be able to see. And he's honed his skills down at Londolozi, tracking exactly this, tracking leopards. You really want to hone your skills as a tracker, this is what you follow. Start off on a rhino, finish off on a leopard. I see her breathing so gently. Watching her stomach coming up and down is just about the same as being hypnotized. Well, Katrina, interesting. You say if Karula is the queen of Juma, is Shadow the queen of Arethusa? Well, I suppose she might be. She might also be considered the princess of Juma, I suppose. You know, that title or moniker comes from our audience, which is wonderful. They have developed some amazing characters and stories around the leopards that we have. So yes, I'm more than happy to call this the queen, let's call her the young queen of Arethusa. She, of course, will seldom be in conflict with her mother. They will share separate territories, will have separate territories, and a bit like human beings who have, human males, let's say, on farms, where the sons generally split the dad's farm up, and then the land gets smaller and smaller. So it is with female leopards quite often. So the mother will have a territory, and when she has a number of female offspring over the years, so her territory will sort of lose slices as it happens, and eventually her territory will be quite small and will probably be usurped when she dies by one of her daughters, although there's very seldom anything in the way of physical conflict between mothers and daughters. In fact, I don't think it ever happens. So Andrew, I don't know if you want to zoom out and then just maybe pan in from the left and just give an idea of the kind of terrain that Shadow's lying in. And then, as Edward has pointed out, we went from a very sort of green-free or greyish gold crest where there were no green leaves to this area that has got quite a lot more in the way of groundwater. It's a sort of drainage line catchment, and there is quite a lot more green here, and most of the green you're seeing, of course, is the guarri bushes, Euclea divinorum, and there's the odd Bolusanthus speciosus or tree wisteria tree around here, but mostly it's those guarri bushes. And you might also be able to see that this area definitely had a fire through last year. Lots of trees are dead on top and growing from the bottom. Now, as Andrew pans around again, back to the leopard, you will notice how you could quite easily walk within probably 30 meters of her without noticing at all. And she just lift her head quietly like you saw her do just now, watch you walk past, put it down again, and go back to sleep. The first time I found Shadow, she was on a termite mound, and I spotted her on foot, and she was watching me, and she had been watching me for some time, I think. And as she saw me see her, they know immediately when they've been spotted. She just stuck her head down like this. So I pretended not to see her and just carried on walking, and then she lifted her head again and went back to sleep. And that's exactly what she'd do here if you walk past. In fact, she probably did do it. I was walking around here, not 50 meters from here, just before we managed to eventually find her. So they're tremendously confiding, these leopards. And I didn't actually manage to see her on foot. When I got back into the vehicle, we did another circle round and found her here. But she must have been watching me the whole time. So we have had a rather marvelous morning, everybody. You've had some incredible sort of hyena sightings, and Andrew and I spent a beautiful first part of the morning in the mist, which was very special indeed. And then as the mist lifted, we came across to Arathusa. Didn't find a huge amount, a couple of impala, and then this magnificent female leopard. So thank you very much to all of you who've contributed. We do so love to hear from you. So please keep coming with your comments and your questions. It really is good to hear from you all the time. We're going to sit here for a little bit longer with this leopard. And a big thank you to Andrew, of course, on camera, and to Nikki and Louise in the final control, and Eugene and Alex, wherever they happen to be working on their dark arts. We're going to hand you back across to Jamie now for a final closing, and we will see you a little bit later this afternoon. Just before you go, there are some elephants calling off way to the west.
So guys, welcome back right at the end of our sunrise safari. Thank you as always for joining us. It was a great morning. We spent a lot of time with those wonderful hyenas, which is always entertaining, especially in that nice misty light. So great to have you. And I'm so pleased to hear that James found Shadow on Arathusa. So this afternoon promises to be an exciting one, with the possibility of the Birmingham boys making their way south. So we never know, they might make their way across. So for now, I'm going to sign out and say a big thank you to all of the viewers, to Jean-Dre for his amazing camera work as always, and to Nikki and Lou in FC, and Eugene and Alex on the tech side. And we will see you this afternoon for the Sunset Safari. Join us then.